The Duke of Havelock had refused 109 invitations in 6 years, and he refused them by a standing instruction. His secretary declined every card that mentioned dancing, without troubling him. So the card that came up on the salver on the 2nd of October ought never to have reached his desk at all. It reached it because his secretary, Mr. Pilbeam, had turned it over and seen what was written in the corner, and had gone rather white, and had brought it in himself. It was a plain card, engraved cheaply. A subscription ball at the Whitcomb Assembly Rooms, the 11th of November, tickets 7 shillings. The whole proceeds to the fever ward at Whitcomb Infirmary. And along the bottom edge, in a small upright hand in brown ink, somebody had written 6 words. She was not afraid at all. Holly's Havelock sat looking at that card for a very long time. He had received those 6 words once a year for 6 years. They came every autumn on the 11th of November at the end of a letter of 2 or 3 pages, unsigned, with no direction on the inside and nothing to identify the writer but the postmark of a market town 20 miles off. He had never answered one, because there had never been anywhere to send an answer. The letters told him things about the last night of his wife's life. The first, which had come 11 months after Sophia died, had told him that, when she was taken ill in the retiring room at the Marchways ball, she had asked the woman who came to help her not to fetch her husband, because he will blame himself for bringing me, and it is only a faintness, and he does so hate a fuss. The second, a year later, told him that Sophia had talked in that hour about a mare called Juniper, and about her mother's greenhouse, and about a hymn she could not remember the second verse of. The third told him that she had held somebody's hand very tightly for 40 minutes and had apologized twice for the trouble. Every one of them ended with the same 6 words, and every one of them had been, in the plainest sense, the only medicine he had ever been given. He rang the bell. Pilbeam accepted. "Your Grace," a pause, "there is dancing." "I am aware." The Whitcomb Assembly Rooms were 40 feet by 22, lit by tallow in tin sconces, and 11 wax candles at the top of the room where the subscribers sat, and were 3/4 full when the Duke of Havelock came in at 9 o'clock on the 11th of November. The first ball he had entered in 6 years, on the 6th anniversary of the last one. The noise went out of the room like water out of a cracked jug. He had not thought about that. He had not been in a public room in the county since the funeral, and he saw, in the space of a breath, exactly what he was to these people: a roomer in a good coat, a Duke of 42 who kept the shutters closed and gave money and never came. The chairman of the subscription got up so fast he overturned a chair. Holly's got through it. He was thanked 11 times in 4 minutes. He said the correct things. And all the while he was looking down the room at the raised end, at the 4 hired musicians, 2 fiddles, a flute, and at a plain square pianoforte with 2 candles on it, a woman of about 26 in a gray gown, playing a country dance from memory, who had not looked up once. She had ink on her second finger. He waited until the set ended. Then he walked the length of the Whitcomb Assembly Rooms, in front of 200 people, and stopped at the pianoforte. "You wrote to me," he said. The woman at the instrument put her hands in her lap. She had a plain, quiet, intelligent face, and she went white to the lips, and she did not pretend for 1 second not to understand him. "Yes, Your Grace." "6 times." "7, the first one I burned." Her voice was low and steady. "It was too full of my own feelings, and none of it was any use to you." "Your name?" "Perdita Hulme. I teach the pianoforte and singing at Whitcomb, and I play for the assemblies, which is how I was at Marchways 6 years ago." She looked up at him at last. "I was turning the pages for the second fiddle that night, sir. I was 19. I went out to the retiring room for a glass of water, and there was a lady on the sofa who could not get her breath, and I stayed with her, because the maid had gone for salts and there was nobody else." Holly's Havelock stood in the middle of a country ball with his hand on the corner of a hired pianoforte, and could not speak at all. "I did not know who she was until the Tuesday," Perdita went on, very fast now, as though she had rehearsed it for years and knew it would only come out once. "And then I read in the paper that the Duchess of Havelock was dead of a fever, and I thought somebody ought to tell you what she said, because she said such ordinary lovely things and there was nobody in that room to hear them but me, and if she had been mine I should have wanted them." Her hands were shaking in her lap. "And then I thought that a letter from a nobody would be an impertinence, and I burned it. And then in the November I could not bear it and I wrote again and I sent it, and I never signed it because I did not want you to feel you must reply or thank me or receive me or anything at all. I only wanted you to have them." The chairman of the subscription was hovering 8 feet away, with the look of a man who does not know whether to interrupt a duke. "Miss Homey," said Hollis, "why the card?" For the first time she faltered. "Because it is the last one," she said. "I am going into a school at Ashcot in the spring, a real position, £40 and my board, and I shall not be playing assemblies any more. And I thought, since I would never write again, that I would like, just once, for you to be in a room with music in it." She looked down at the keys. "You had not been at a ball in 6 years. I have thought about that every November. It seemed such a great deal for one night to have taken from you." The musicians were waiting. The whole room was waiting. "Then stand up," said the Duke of Havelock, "and dance with me." "Your Grace, I am the pianoforte. There are 2 fiddles and a flute, and I shall pay them all double." He held out his hand. "Miss Homey, in 6 years I have declined 109 invitations, and I have come to this one because of 6 words written on the bottom of a card. I am not going to dance with anybody else." Perdita Homey looked at his hand. Then she stood up and gave the flute player a nod, and put her hand in the Duke of Havelock's, with the ink still on her finger. And the room made a sound that was not quite a cheer and not quite a sigh, and the fiddles struck up. He called at her lodging the next morning, which was 2 rooms over a stationer's in Whitcomb, and was told by the stationer's wife, with enormous relish, that Miss Homey had gone out at 8 to teach the Pardo children and would be back at 1. He waited in the shop for 5 hours. He bought, by the end of it, 9 quires of paper, a bottle of brown ink, 2 boxes of wafers and a globe, none of which he had the least use for. "You cannot do this," she said, when she came in at 1:10 with a music case under her arm. "I am aware. There are people at the window." "There have been people at the window since about 9:30, said the Duke of Havelock. "Miss Homey, I have a thing to say, and then I shall go away for as long as you tell me to. May we sit on the step, or in the shop, or anywhere at all that is not a private room, because I will not put you in a position that can be talked about." They sat on 2 chairs among the ledgers, with the shop door standing wide open, and the stationer's wife polishing the same 6 inches of counter for a quarter of an hour. "6 years ago," Holly said, "I took my wife to a ball when she said she had a headache, and 3 days later she died, and I decided that the ball had done it. That is not sense. She had a fever, and it would have taken her in her own bed. But grief is not sensible, and I could not go into a room with music in it without hearing myself say to her, at the foot of my own stairs, that the air would do her good." He turned his hat over in his hands. "For 6 years, the only thing that has ever made that night bearable was a letter from somebody who would not tell me her name. And now I know her name, and I find I have been in love with her handwriting for rather a long while, which is a foolish thing for a man of 42 to say out loud in a stationer's shop. Perdita sat very still, with her music case on her knees. "You are in love with what I told you about her," she said. "That is not the same as being in love with me. You must see that it is not." "No, it is not, which is why I am not going to ask you anything today." He looked at her. "You said last night that you are going to Ashcot in the spring. Go, take the position. It is a good one and you have earned it, and you would resent me for the rest of your life if you gave it up in November for a man you had spoken to twice." He stood. "But I shall write to you, every week and not anonymously, and if you do not answer, I shall stop the moment you say the word." He wrote every week for 5 months. He wrote badly at first. A duke's correspondence is dictated, and he had forgotten how to make a page sound like a man, and then better. He wrote about the tenants, and about a mare called Juniper who was still alive at 19 and had gone entirely gray about the face, and about his mother's greenhouse, which he had reglazed in January because of the second of those letters, and about the second verse of the hymn, which he had found at last in an old book and copied out for her. She answered every one. Her letters were funny, which the anonymous ones had never been. She went to Ashcot in the March. He did not follow her, he wrote. In June he came by invitation and was shown the schoolroom, and 11 girls sang a part song for him and got the ending wrong in a manner he found unaccountably moving. In August, the school's proprietress, a formidable woman named Mrs. Skiro, told him privately that Miss Hulme was the best teacher of music she had employed in 30 years, and that if he took her away, she would never forgive him. "I do not mean to take her away," he said. "I mean to ask her to marry me and to go on with it." His aunt, Lady Culverhouse, said the things such women say in a letter of 9 pages. An assembly pianist, no family, 2 rooms over a shop, the memory of dear Sophia, what the county would say. He answered it in 2 lines. That dear Sophia had spent the last hour of her life holding the hand of a girl of 19, who had no reason on earth to stay in that room and stayed anyway, and that the county might say what it liked, since it had said nothing at all for 6 years, and he had not found the silence particularly nourishing. He asked her in the September, at Ashcot, in the school garden, with 11 girls frankly watching from an upstairs window. "I have written you 32 letters," he said, "and you have answered every one, and I know now that it is not the handwriting. It is the woman who could not bear, at 19, for a stranger's kind words to go unheard, and who has spent 7 years since teaching other people's daughters to sing on £40 a year without one word of complaint." He took her hands. "Marry me, Perdita. Keep the music. Have a school at Havelock if you want one, and 100 girls in it, and I shall pay for the pianofortes and stay out of the way. Your Grace." "Hollies." "Hollies," she was crying and laughing at herself for it. "You understand that I shall be dreadful at being a duchess. I shall correct people's tempo at dinner. I am counting on it." They were married in the November, on the 11th, which was her idea and not his. And she said, when he questioned it, that it was a date that had been carrying too heavy a load for 6 years, and had better be given something else to do. The fever ward at Whitcomb was built the following year, and there were 40 beds in it. Nobody's name was carved over the door. The Duchess of Havelock was very firm about that. She said the money had come from 7-shilling tickets and country fiddlers, and that if a name went up there, it should be the flute players. There was a music school at Havelock by the 3rd year, in the old orangery, with 9 pianofortes and a stove. And there was an annual ball on the 11th of November, at which the Duke of Havelock danced the first set with his wife every year for 29 years, and the last set, always, with whichever of her pupils was most terrified of him. And in the drawer of his writing desk, tied with tape, he kept 6 letters in a small upright hand, and a cheap engraved card with 6 words written along the bottom edge in brown ink, the invitation he could not refuse, from the only person in England who had thought to tell a grieving man the ordinary, lovely, unremarkable things his wife had said, and who had signed her name to none of it, and had asked him for nothing, and had been loved for it in the end, for the rest of her life.